Hello, everyone. Welcome to Secure IT, where we discuss all things cybersecurity, people, trends, and products. Thank you for joining us on our continuing journey. Today is a fun and easy one. It wasn't too long ago. Masterminds meeting. You've heard me talk about masterminds often on here. It's a peer group run by Ingram Micro. I'm looking across the room and I see these perfectly formed, well-oiled, glossy curls, and I know I got to make this trek across the room to
Oh,
meet this
come on.
person. Slightly disappointed it was a guy, but ladies and gentlemen, it was well worth the trip. So please join me here in welcoming the president and CEO of fast-growing, almost global, headquartered in Chicago, CEO of Heartland Computers. Welcome, Todd Greenwald.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you, Phil. That was a great intro. I like that.
Thank
I didn't know you were talking about me for a second. I was like,
I
who is he talking
Me
about?
neither.
But well, thank you for having me and inviting me on the show. I've really been impressed with all you've been doing, the great guests you've had. Just immense amount of smart people that you brought on and just sharing their story and what they do every day. And I think it hopes to help others grow and and leverage the collaboration. That's a wonderful, powerful thing. So thank you for inviting me into that group. I'm excited to be here. So
Uh, Thank you for friendship, constantly being on speed dial. We've been sounding boards for each other. And thank you all for your advice and your support
yeah,
over the
love
years,
it.
Todd. So um, you know, the strength of this show is to talk about the person, the man, the legend, the myth. We do go into a little bit about what you do and business and everything else, only so that we can make this podcast tax deductible. But we bookend it with you. So I want to start with, let's start with your origin story. Just give us like three major career moves that
Yeah.
got you here. It's 1989, and I know you weren't washing dishes, but allow me to embellish because it sounds a little more dramatic. You're in Second City, you're ushering people to their seats. Next thing, you're CEO of, a global multi-million dollar corporation.
Yeah. So uh, not your typical leader, maybe in a technology or fast growing company, where I'm excited to be at today. But if I go back to my roots, um, kind of a weird story was I was in high school and I decided I want to do this thing called improvisation. Like I was really into it in Chicago here. And I started doing improv classes, which is a element of my story. And the reason why I say that, my first improv class, my teacher was Steve Carell, and he was a very young
Oh,
actor at Second City. From there, I did another class that was Stephen Colbert. And one day, the founder of Second City, I was in the lobby and this older woman's in there. She's like, "Oh, you're such a cute kid. Like, what are you doing this? What are you doing over the summer?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to do these classes." And she's like, "Why don't you come over on Monday? You can help us out around here." So I literally started like, here's a screwdriver, fix these bent wood chairs, which are these classic bent wood chairs that Second City is kind of known for, but just a classic chair for whatever kind of a cabaret thing. So I was fixing chairs. Well, then that quickly turned into being a host. But I was doing these improv classes and I was around improvisation every day with amazing actors and people in that space, from Tina Fey to Chris Farley. I've worked with many, many people, but I learned a lot from being around that. And then I started getting invited into helping out in different areas. I was like an audio recording engineer. I went to college for scenic design and live audio production. Um, as I started to develop my career path of like maybe what I want to do. Actually, I forgot I was going to be a pilot, and that lasted about 8 months. And I decided this is not for me. Too structured, very military, not my thing. But where I kept going back to is like what I learned from Second City was a couple things. It was about communicating and listening to what people are saying in front of you. And it's about how we support each other to be successful. That is, if you look up improvisation and if you check out what Second City has, it's called Second City Works. They're very focused on stage around those two key guiding principles. And it's something that I've used as I've grown and have gotten to the point I have. The funny thing is, while I'm working at Second City, my dad, Jerry Greenwald, starts up Heartland. And during the day, I'm helping him do that. I'm going to college, trying to finish that up, and then working at Second City at night. And I was at Second City for quite a while, probably a good 10 years or so. Started to work my way into some of the production side and more advanced kind of things around the theater, aside from seating people, but fixing chairs and all those fun things back in the day. But I kind of took some change of path as I was starting to um, learn how to network with people and collaborate with people. And by that, there'd be people that would say, "Hey, you need some help at this theater," or "Hey, we're going to be doing this thing called Taste of Chicago, which brings like millions of people into Chicago, all the restaurants, the biggest things." But literally having to transform the city of Chicago, Grant Park, into a complete food festival within hours, like like overnight, turning the entire city into a marathon overnight, and taking it all down by the next day because on Monday traffic is coming back on the street. So it helped me learn about working with people, getting things done, working quickly, being agile, being a team together, having each other's back. And then this thing called Heartland started to build more momentum aside from the entertainment stuff I was doing, where that kind of became a little more of a thing, and got married to my great wife, Tara. And then we had a couple kids, and next thing you know, I'm like, "Man, I gotta pick a path here." And the path was, I'm gonna join forces with my dad. So, I was helping him all the time, but that was more of an operations kinda role where we were working on deployments of and fixing things and doing all kinds of, things around technology, but a weird kinda technology, which is around rugged mobile compute, barcode scanning, barcode label printing, and that endeavor. So that kind of started me on my journey, but I also been involved with many different advisory councils over the years. And the one thing, not painting myself in the back, was I think differently than others, just on how to attack a problem or something that we're trying to construct on a solution. And that could be even with our partners that I'm sitting on a board for, of like, why don't you ever think about this or think about that? And just asking curious questions really. And I've learned that being that way, and listening to your team or your peers or in on the other side, my customers, um, this is where, it's very, powerful, I guess, to just be present and listen and not try to jump to conclusions of, "I'm gonna solve that." Like you just said that, "I'm gonna solve that right now." Listen to what the whole story is, what the whole problem is, and then take steps to say, "Well, have you thought of this? Or tried that?" Or maybe we could try an approach, and that has been very helpful with the career of where I'm at, to become the leader of the business, which I'm really grateful for every day, but really enjoy shaping a good culture and group of team members to serve our customers. So, but that's kind of my path and the journey. And yes, it's been a while. The thing I'm excited about is I still have a lot of passion and I'm like, want to keep going forward and keep getting better. So, very inquisitive about learning to what else I can do to be a better leader and what we can do to serve our customers better.
Todd, well, thank you for elaborating more on your leadership and management style. And I want to just talk about that from your origin story, right? Second City, improv, it's a different environment. There's this great book that you introduced us to, Yes,
Oh,
and
yeah. My friend
um,
Kelly,
uh, your
Kelly
friend
Leonard.
Kelly, right? And
Yep.
he spoke at OpTech as well. But the mindset's different. And sometimes I hear conversations about, um, you know, business degrees. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to add you did 4 years at Columbia College. What did you major in?
Yeah, it was, scenic design, believe it or
There you
not,
go.
and audio
Right.
audio production.
So,
Nothing what I'm doing.
right? And those who can see us on video will see your headset and your mic and all of that. But the point I'm about to make, so you work at Second City, you then go to the mayor's office and you're doing special events, including the Chicago Marathon, and then you start running things here at Heartland. But
Yeah.
sometimes, I wonder, are business degrees overrated? Because you look at, hedge funds and you look at financial institutions, and you'll usually find a guy who's got a psychology major leading it, and or a physics major, and it kind of forces you to look at things from a very different angle. In business, we're quick to containerize, right? We're like, okay, you know what, this is cause, this is effect, here's a solution. It's a little more fun to come to these same issues with a psychology degree or a physics major, as I was talking to, you know, uh, uh, a guest and just before this podcast, who was leading on AI and standards, and he has a chemistry and a bio major. And here you are, right, with all this experience outside of business, absolutely rocking it in the business world,
Oh,
which
thanks.
begs the point: are we looking at this all wrong? Right? I mean, there's a new dimension um, to the guys who are not in here with their MBAs and
Yeah. I
uh,
think
business
there's
Harvard.
probably a balance though, because I know I can drive, some of my s like, my s Randy, who's on my finance team, he's my CFO, I love him, he's awesome. But he's a good balance for us too to say, "Well, okay, this is a
Sure.
good idea, but let's think about this on a business kinda plan level that we can go at." The in you did just say something which is interesting is I didn't think about this till now, that, um, improvisation I'm not gonna get into the details of improv where it started, but it was a long time ago, and there was a woman, Viola Spolin, she started doing these weird exercises and kind of ways of what seems like a game or having fun, but it was children that were immigrants coming into the United States, and they didn't know any English. So they used improvisation, what we know as improvisation kind of workshops or playing around is as ways to communicate, but not being able to really speak. Like, I don't understand what you're saying, but and you don't understand what I'm saying because we're speaking different languages. It is more of a psychological type of approach of, like, how to get people to communicate when they don't know what each other's saying. And there is something around that, and I'm not saying the whole business is leveraged off of this, okay? But it is kinda interesting because I do appreciate a lot of my background and how it has worked well in the business world. Um, so I think there is a business degree, yes, it's important. I've learned a lot on business systems by, as you know, Philip, but some of our listeners don't, that we leverage Traction EOS. And Traction EOS and Pinnacle, we work with a consulting group out of Minneapolis, Keystone. Um, it's 6 key areas around people and process and what's your strategic goals, right? Like I'll be honest, it was very, very fluid before. It was kinda like, I'm saying years ago when my dad said, "I want you to run the business." Awesome. Okay. Well, but until you have a process and know how to run that, um, I think that was kinda transformational, to leverage something like that. There is an element of, like, it's good to be really creative. It's also very good to be very on a business savvy level, right? And know having the MBA. But then there's like this, you need to have some creatives and some business people in the same room that can that we all want to support each other and come up with how else we do this, and work as a
Sure.
team,
Sure.
and not kind
Sure.
of fighting each other or rowing the same
Uh,
direction.
I totally agree. I'm saying your support system and the people around you, I've always said, should be smarter than you as CEO. Um,
Yeah,
and and and
agreed.
God bless the bean counters, but there's a lot to be said about creativity and CEOs coming to this um, from far out left field. Um, it's where, it's often said that the magic happens at the extremes.
Yeah.
And I believe, and I can say this because I call you friend, that you are extreme. I mean, you are creative, and you'll look at this and you bring a totally different angle to this. So thank you for that. And I think we did create an eureka insightful moment at the over here.
Yeah.
What's your superpower, Todd?
A superpower?
Uh-huh.
I think thinking outside the box and being creative, helps. Um, yeah, I think that helps quite a bit for me. Um, it can get in the way,
And
but
you
it
can
is a
draw
very
on,
yeah,
thanks to improv, you can draw on this almost instantaneously.
yeah. No, I mean, I think it is something that, it can get me in trouble, I guess, maybe sometimes too. But, but at the same time, the curiosity factor and trying to think what else can we do, and however we did it before, whatever, let's put that away for a second. Let's think about I think that is kinda I think this is something that I'm on my front that it helps me quite a bit.
So you're saying hire a stand-up comedian on all executive teams? I'm joking.
No,
Uh,
I'm not
let's talk.
telling jokes at all, no. Just trying to think
Uh,
outside the box.
let's talk business. Tell us about everything. Heartland, your connection with Honeywell,
Yeah.
um, and the growth of your business. What do you do?
Yeah, so we're, putting the jokes aside now, we're in a pretty serious space of what we do. We focus with manufacturing, trucking, and warehouse distribution businesses, so supply chain from everything from a frozen million square foot warehouse to a fleet of tens of thousands of trucks. Um, and really, the purpose of what we do is we provide different technology to help those workers get their job done every day. From the truck driver to know the 20 routes I have to go to and how I'm going to get there, to the warehouse worker on I have 11 things on this order that I have to pick in this million square foot warehouse, where I have to get it, how many I have to grab of those things, and, many other aspects in the warehouse space, to a manufacturing floor of I gotta make widgets and how can we leverage technology to make those widgets. So we deal with mid-sized kinda companies to the Fortune 50 types of businesses, very large global businesses, and providing types of technology. Now, that technology word's a bit of a I don't know, bland topic of like, well, what kind of technology? It's things like barcode scanning, RFID, how to track things, track people, um, track different types of product that maybe needs to be temperature controlled, to just putting on barcodes, to labels. But we're also getting into, things like robotics and AI around data, as well as voice technology, voice guided technology, all kinds of different tech in order to enable those supply chain businesses be more productive.
So supply chain, warehouse, automation, these are the key words I'm hearing. And
Yeah.
you have successfully grown this business from the time you were involved in the early 90s. What differentiates Heartland from everyone else?
Um, we do remain very focused on some of that technology I just told you. We're not looking to broaden much out beyond the um, some of that mobility space and enterprise grade technology. We're focused on that, and we're experts in that every day, and how to deploy tens of thousands of devices quickly, manage all those devices, pick the right technology. So we're like really just very nichey and stay focused in that type of tech space. And then knowing our customers' environments and prospects that we deal with. on what those challenges might be. If you're a frozen warehouse, I was literally just last week in a forgery for massive chunks of red hot steel. Um, you you know, you're literally in the if you're near that, your face, you can just feel the heat coming off of these massive bars of steel. Not even bars, but I'm talking like huge blocks of steel. And just knowing those spaces and like what is going to really work right for what they're saying their issues are and what we're trying to solve for.
One of the things that you do, and I know this because we've talked about this often, is you listen to your customer. And um, Tiffany Bovo from Salesforce
Oh yeah,
says, "Look, guys, it's not that you've invented the best thing since sliced bread. It's the fact that you listen to your customer, and you can two things happen. One, not only is your customer happy, but you get your 5-year plan." Um,
yeah,
I often say on the show that, Henry Ford said, look, if I had to listen to my customer, I would have invented a faster horse. The point is, the answer lies somewhere in between those two, right? The
yeah,
Model T and the faster horse.
yeah. I think I think listening is really important. That goes back to some of the principles I was talking earlier about. But you're trying not to come to conclusions of what they you think you're hearing, listening to the whole um, set of issues that they've been going through, or and it could be issues like, hey, we're just growing really fast, and we don't know how to deal with that, and we just don't have enough people. Um, there's a place for that for technology. There's a place for someone like us to augment what you don't have the bandwidth to do and let us do that for you, to augment what you have been doing traditionally of you maybe supporting it. Let us take that on because we can make these things work better, and more efficiently for you. But but to the I do like that analogy on, with Henry Ford because, it's you gotta hear what the problem is before you can jump to starting to solve that and what you can do to be the hero for the customer at the end of the day, but more importantly, let that person and group of people you're working with be the hero because they're the ones that will look really good when we solve this problem together.
Thanks for that foundation about your business, Todd. And here's mine, right? Cybersecurity, risk mitigation. You and I had a very interesting, eye-opening conversation about the fact that, you had uh, one of these organizations that I believe was your customer, and there's a warehouse and where there's a forklift walking or going around with a printer strapped onto it, which was actually a point on the network susceptible to hacking out there. And it goes to, the little focus that we put on all things OT, right?
Yeah.
The operational technology and the fact that, whether it's utilities or whether it's the forklift in the warehouse, uh, here's a potential area of weakness on our networks. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so unfortunately in a warehouse, it's very dynamic, it's very big. Um, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of moving people. And when I say moving people, I'm saying high turnover rate in a lot of these businesses, unfortunately. I don't know about you, but I'm not too keen in working at a negative 20-degree Fahrenheit uh, environment in a frozen warehouse, literally. And it can yield to turnover and things like that. Reason why I say that is uh, even with um, some cool technology or stuff that we're trying to sweat these assets and make them last longer, then enters when you're running, literally, we have customers that are running Windows Mobile, Windows CE, Microsoft CE. I'm talking like really old stuff, not secure, really old networks, not secure. Printers that, yeah, my kid, who's a cybersecurity kid, but he's not a kid, he's 27, but he could probably hack in that printer within like a minute if you really wanted to, and then get into the network. So the OT security thing is a huge, huge risk. Unfortunately, we've seen some of our customers, and you've seen them in the news too, of situations that have happened with with a manufacturing floor or a warehouse or whatever it would be, right? It's extremely disruptive if there is an unfortunate situation of a breach, ransomware, whatever you want to throw at it. But there's a lot of technology that is, like you said, OT for operational, cyber types of things that are on the floor from temperature sensors. And the thing that's happening is it's getting worse faster because we want to try something new out, a new robot, a new something. And we want to put a temperature sensor here so we can measure temperature, right? And working with the security entity within the business or your partners outside of the business, right? And validating before you start putting these things in place, the new cool things. Are they secure? Are you opening up Pandora's box by putting something out there that could cause a potential risk, right? I mean, it's happening so quickly. It's kind of alarming, to see how people just want to throw something out on the floor, and now you might have just caused a vulnerability in your infrastructure by doing that. So there's this balance of like wanting to do that, and and companies should do that because they're seeing a lot of benefits with it. But then going through a validation process is very critical to make sure what you're putting out there, which should help you, isn't going to open up a big hole or even a small hole enough for the bad guys to get in.
And to give our listeners and viewers a visual, we see those pictures of the Amazon warehouse with the robots flying at light speed, going picking up stuff. That's
Yeah,
what you live and breathe
every
on a
day.
daily basis, every day. And
Yep.
and um, talk to me about AI and how is this affecting you?
Um, there is so much data that's collected through all these different aspects of these operations. Um, I think AI, one of the things that we've been seeing is very beneficial is by how can you use that data and quickly make decisions on maybe a trend that is happening. For instance, maybe you have some workers that have devices in their hands, they're doing inventory or pulling a transaction for an order. Um, Taking the information that's gathered in the device, there's all kinds of things from different sensors and different radio signal and all how many times I've pulled the trigger to maybe scan something. If I pull the trigger, I go to scan a box and then it doesn't scan, so I have to manually now type into my handheld computer or onto my vehicle mount on a forklift. Um, you know, why did that happen? Why did that person should be able to scan and go, and now they're moved on. If I've scanned 3 times, it's not scanning, now I start manually entering. There's data happening right there, collection point of, like, saying, "Why did that happen? Is it did it not know how to read that barcode? Did they was it having trouble decoding that?" Which is some of the technology and the in the backside of the scan engine. But if you can learn from that, like, this keeps happening on this certain barcode all the time, well, maybe it's a bad barcode, maybe it's a bad location in the shelf, but using the data to start to bring those things forward to make a correction and make good decisions of like of what can make that better. The 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 suffering and silence problem with all that is these people do this every day, and those 3 pulls I did on my trigger and then that manual entry maybe just lost 2 seconds of production for me, right? So, it's AI is there's so many directions on where you can go with it, even from network data, but we are definitely, seeing a lot of activity, where literally milliseconds, if not half of a second, means something to look for savings.
Insightful. Let's move back to you. Best investment you've ever made, and this doesn't have to be financial or a stock tip. It could be a stationary bike or the first bunch of
Ooh.
roses you bought for your wife. Best investment you ever made, Todd.
Best investment would probably, if I'm thinking recent, pontoon boat. and getting out on the lake literally every night that there's a sunset. Tara and I are out there with their dogs, and it's
Awesome.
great, great, mind melter real quick to, like,
I hear
just
you.
relax.
Beautiful. If you had a billboard,
What would it say or look like?
really?
The words "yes" and probably come to mind.
Of course, that's brilliant.
So
Um,
that's more about, trying to solve things and not shutting other people down and hearing other people's perspectives.
in short, and tell me if I mess this up, but in short, it's like if you meet the person that you disagree with, and you are forced, and we did this exercise once, and you say,
Oh,
"Look,
yeah. That's right.
the sky is green," and I've got to respond to you, "Yes, and it
And
forces
then
us to meet
yeah.
halfway, right?
So it sounds
And
funny, but
yep,
this is some the theory stuff from Second City in this works group that we're doing. So, but it is pretty empowering. We use it here all the time. Like, I mean, literally,
love
it's
it.
it's not to be like, oh yeah, the sky's green, and yeah, the sky's green, and I mean, we're using it on a business sense of like how to solve a problem, but it's pretty cool.
Yes, and that's deep.
Yes, and
I think we just paid for ourselves on this
you
podcast.
gotta
That
if anybody wants to learn more about that, check out Kelly Leonard's podcast called Yes and. It's awesome. He has a lot of great guests, but he talks about this quite a bit too if you wanna dig into that more.
we'll remember to put a link on the show notes.
Yeah.
Um, what are you excited about? Passion projects.
Passion projects. God. Well, we really are you saying business, personal, whatever?
Whatever you want, Todd. Floor is
Whatever you
yours.
want. Well,
What are you passionate? Anything exciting on the horizon besides the pontoon board? You had me at that on the lake.
yeah, well, I mean, I really we are big, like, water people, ocean people, surfing, just slowing down sometimes, to kinda take time to reflect and enjoy life
I love it. So your passion
is
is being in the moment.
yes, yes.
Nice. Okay, rapid fire. Already? Not more than a few
Well,
seconds. Whatever comes to
okay.
mind. I'm shooting.
Hmm,
Religion.
religion. Okay, well, thanks for throwing that one at me. Not mhm,
That's good.
Buddhists. I love the theory of Buddhists. I don't like to pick one religion in my eyes. I think God is it looks from it's at what angle you're looking at it from. It could be the same
I
thing to
love
all
it.
different kinds of people.
Were you picking Sweden non-aligned? Politics.
Politics, God, really? This is even
Really?
harder, but,
That's good enough.
um,
Yeah.
no,
I'll take that as an answer. Really.
no, but, uh, yeah, it's a good thing, but we need to be in this together,
I hear you.
all of us,
Books.
every one of us. Books, boy, so, I mean, we talked about yes and, but, I do really like, the things that, Paul Lencioni talks about. There's not really one or another that jumps out at me, but, the other one that I really have enjoyed on a business level as well is, Gino Wickman's Traction EOS.
Nice. Historical figures.
Historical what? Favors?
Historical figures.
Oh, figures. Um, geez. I am thinking tough one. I'm like, this
Okay.
is if I were
Let's
to
come
say
back
there's
to it.
one no, 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 we're good. I'm thinking Aldrin for all the things he did in space. I don't know. Pretty cool.
Nice. That's good. One small step for mankind.
And that was the
Music.
grade school I went to as well, by the way.
Wow.
Music, favorite band, all-time band. I do have a big favorite all-time band that is Manchester Orchestra out of Atlanta, Georgia. Amazing band.
Cool. What kind of music?
Like alternative
Nice. Manchester Orchestra.
rock
Okay, we'll look it up
with a
right after we hang
splash
up.
of flair. So,
Lessons from grandma.
lessons from grandma. Make enough more than enough food from everyone.
Say it again.
Make plenty of food for everyone. So,
Nice. Of course.
Italian
Right? Yep.
Italian. So,
Italian hospitality, but lessons to be learned. Make sure you
yes,
can share, make sure there's enough to go around, and
and enough for
everyone's
tomorrow.
happy.
S
Mr. Greenwald, this was a ton of fun. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Philip.
Yep. Ladies and
Likewise.
gentlemen, sorry.
I said likewise. I've had a blast. It's been great to be on the show.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Secure IT as I continue the cybersecurity discussion with customers, vendors, end users, friends, employees, helping us learn from their insights, knowledge, and experiences. In this case, it was yes, and make sure to follow this podcast for free wherever you have your podcasts or wherever they're hosted. And more importantly, do DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter, actually X now, with feedback, questions, and comments. Thanks again, everyone, and see you next month.